broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Case study of medical device packaging failures. I'm Greg Swinghammer. I'll be your moderator and webinar organizer today. Before we get started, let's take a moment to ensure that everyone is ready and familiar with their webinar control panel. First, you should have a control panel on the right side of your screen. You can minimize this panel by clicking on the orange arrow button in the upper left-hand corner. You may expand the panel by clicking on the same button. Secondly, you have the ability to submit questions using the chat pane located near the bottom of the control panel. We'll be answering a few questions during the webinar. However, if we are unable to address your questions during the webinar, our presenter will follow up with you via email afterwards. Today's webinar and video slide deck should be available on WESTPAK's website within the next couple of days. With that, let's get started. Today's presenter is Katie Tran, a Principal Quality Systems Engineer here at WESTPAK. Katie has been with WESTPAK for 13 years. Katie, take it away.
Thank you, Greg. Let's start with the agenda. Real scenarios are used in these case studies. There are no actual products are displayed. Everyday objects are used to represent the physical characteristic of the actual product to keep our confidentiality maintained. There will be two case studies talked about, case study number 1 and number 2. The goals for this webinar is to learn from other customers and to avoid these package failures. Let's get started with the webinar with case study number 1. The packaging information. It is a chipboard carton with the style of straight tuck-in STE. There's 2 packs of this in the shipper. The shipper is about 19 inches in length, 13 inches wide, and 6 inches in height. It's about 10 pounds. The shipper is an end-loading regular slotted container, RSC. 200 psi single-wall corrugated fiberboard. The flutes run parallel to the largest face. The test inputs. This particular client did conditioning per ASTM D4169, followed by package performance testing per ASTM D4169. Let's get into more details of the conditioning. Like I said, this client decided to do conditioning per ASTM D4332, starting off with the desert condition at 60 degrees C and 15% RH for 24 hours, followed by the frozen condition at minus 30 degrees C and uncontrolled RH for 24 hours. And last but not least, finishing it up with tropical condition at 40 degrees C and 90% RH for 24 hours. With a total of 72 hours for conditioning, does not include ramp time. After conditioning, this client did package performance testing per ASTM D4169 using the distribution cycle 3 at assurance level 1. This particular customer does not ship a Viva Air, so that's why the distribution cycle 3. Within D4169, there are multiple test inputs. Starts off with initial manual handling, also known as drops, followed by vehicle stacking, also known as compression, then vehicle vibration using only the truck spectrum, loose-low vibration, concentrated impacts, and final manual handling, which is drops. So let's start talking about initial manual handling. The box itself weighs 10 pounds, which is less than 20 pounds at assurance level 1. The required drop height is 24 inches. Listed on the left right here are the 6 impacts or drops. It starts off with 1 top drop, 2 drops where adjacent bottom edges, 2 diagonally opposite bottom corners drops, and 1 bottom. As you can see on the right in the photo is a drop tester where there's a tissue box being laid on its base down for drop testing. Next is vehicle stacking, also known as compression. This particular formula is the mixed commodity found in ASTM D4169. Using the length, width, and height of the box and the safety factor of 10 for F, because the client selected assurance level 1, the minimum required top load is 687 pound force. Vehicle vibration. I mentioned earlier this particular customer only wanted the truck spectrum. Vehicle vibration is 180 minutes total, where it's evenly divided into 3 axes, so 60 minutes per axis. There are 3 levels or 3 spectra for the vehicle vibration. So within the 60 minutes per axis, 40 minutes of that 60 minutes is subjected to the low level intensity as indicated right here. After that, 15 minutes of it is being tested at the medium level intensity. And then 5 minutes of that is at the high level intensity for a total of 60 minutes for each axis. Here is a graph of what the profile looks like, the spectra looks like on the left. As you can see on the right photo is the tissue box being placed on the vibration table for testing. Loose low vibration table using assurance level 1. The total required time is 60 minutes, where 30 minutes is on its base down, 15 minutes is on its side down, and 15 minutes on its end down. Concentrated impact testing is an optional test depending on the shipper you have. For this particular case, the customer has a 200 psi single wall corrugated fiberboard. Because he has a 200 psi single wall corrugated fiberboard, it requires him to do this test input. Located on the bottom right here is the picture of the impactor. We use this impactor traveling a distance of 32 inches, vertical distance, impacting all 6 faces to generate an energy of 5.4 joules. Then we finish with the final manual handling, 6 impact again, but the orientation is different. 1 vertical edge, 2 adjacent side faces, 2 drops, where 1 top corner and 1 adjacent top edge, followed by 1 drop on its bottom, which needs to be twice the height. So the box itself weighs 10 pounds. At assurance level 1, it requires 24 inches. So for the final bottom drop, it requires a 48-inch drop. What kind of failure mode did this customer experience? He had compression failure. It was not able to reach the calculated top load of 687 pound force. The maximum top load sustained was around 400 pounds. Here is what a box compression failure looks like. You can see how it started to have buckling and crushed corners and edges. Recommendation that we did. We said change the flute's direction. As you can see on the left right here, where the flutes are parallel to the orientation, the base orientation for testing. So instead of having the flutes help strengthen the box strength, instead it becomes like accordion where it doesn't even provide any support at all. So we suggested to change the flutes to be perpendicular, as seen on the right, where the flutes are vertical to give it more strength. Another recommendation we provided is change the box style. The box he had was a regular slotted container, shown on the left right here. Please understand these are not the actual box that we had for the customer, so these are representation box I'm trying to show to you. So on the left right here is a regular slotted container where the flaps are met and taped together. We recommend to do a full overlap, outer flap, crosses over to the other side, giving it another strength for compression strength for the box. Another recommendation we suggested to the customer was change the carton material, since it was a 2-pack, 2 cartons inside a shipper. Change it from a chipboard paperboard carton like the M&M here to a corrugated one. Another recommendation is change the carton style. He has a straight tuck-in STE carton. We said, why don't you try a row end lock front RELF carton? This provides more compression strength. We also recommend increase the board strength of the shipper. He had a 200 psi single wall board strength. We said try 275 psi to give him more compression strength. So the clients made every single change that we recommended. He changed the box style, he changed the flutes direction, he changed the carton material and the style, and he increased the board strength of the shipper. The results of the repeat testing, it went through the conditioning, went to ASTM D4169 distribution cycle 3 at assurance level 1. It was successful. He didn't have compression failure anymore. This is the end of case study number 1. If you have any questions, please address them now or wait until the end of the webinar.
Thanks, Katie. We do have a few questions here. The first one is assurance level 1 on D4169 typical for medical device packaging?
From what we've seen with a lot of our customers, assurance level 1 is one of the popular assurance level. And based on what the trend is, most of the time, if something is going inside a human body, our customer would like to claim the most severe, the most aggressive, and rigorous assurance level, which is assurance level 1. There's assurance level 2, which is tested on pills or anything that doesn't go inside the human body. And assurance level 3 is rarely used for medical device companies. They're usually used with electronics, but it's so rare. Thanks, Greg.
You're welcome, Katie. Our next question is, can you compare ASTM D4169 to ASTM D7386?
ASTM D4169 is a package performance testing as well as ASTM D7386. D7386 has a combination of test inputs where you will vibe with a top load. A while back ago, we did a webinar that was done by Trace Wood, who compare ASTM D4169 and ISTA or ISTA standards. D7386 is very similar to the ISTA 3A standard. So if you want to check out that webinar, go to our website and you'll be able to locate that.
Great. Thanks, Katie. The next question is, I want to know how to handle damaged boxes during or after the sterilization process.
If you are planning to do a package validation after your sterilization process, then I would recommend using new boxes, because when you ship those sterilized box to the sterilizer, that's one transit testing, and it comes back, that's another transit testing. If by that time the box is already busted, before you send it out to your test lab, you should replace it. That's assuming you're shipping the sterilizer boxes to your customer, your end user. If it's not, they usually repack into different configuration, and you should still switch the boxes before you go through testing. Thanks, Greg.
You're welcome, Katie. We got another question here. How do you determine the acceptance criteria for packaging on a pass-fail standard?
That's a very loaded question. So the acceptance criteria is determined by our customer, and as a testing laboratory, how we determine is based off of the standard. So in this particular case, this customer has ASTM D4169 distribution cycle 3 that has drops, compression, vibration, loose flow, concentrated, and drops. Those are all more of a performance testing. There is no criteria you're shooting for except the compression strength, compression testing where it has a value. It tells you it needs to meet a minimum of X pounds. If you don't get there, then obviously it's a fail. In our report, we don't write the word fail just because it gets into this whole debate. We just say the box was not able to sustain the calculated top load, and you guys are taking the taking that and determine whether or not you want to make sure your box is able to stand the calculated top load. So that question has a lot in it. Thanks, Greg.
Sure. I'm going to add a little on to that. In the medical device industry, the transportation testing under D4169 is usually called conditioning, and the actual test with a pass-fail criteria would be either the bubble, the peel, or the die. So that would be kind of more pass-fail. There's not a pass-fail for the transportation test. It's the testing of the packaging after it goes through conditioning. So anyway, Katie, let's hear about case number 2.
Let's continue with case study number 2. So case study number 2 is actually the same customer who came to us and was the same customer as case study number 1. I cannot display his product right here for confidentiality reason, but I can briefly describe what his product was. It had round edges. The height of the product was around 2.5 inch. It's a square-like shape, and he sterilized his product for 2x gamma radiation. I was trying to find something similar to what he has, considering it was a medical device product. The closest one I could find is a mouse that has the roundish edge and the height of what we're talking about. So the mouse right here indicated on the right in the photo will be the product representation. Primary package information. Again, the pouch size about 18 inches in length, 12 inches in width, and 2.5 inches in height. The pouch material is made of Tyvek on one side and poly on the other one. It's a 44 gauge PET uncoated Tyvek 1073B. As indicated in the photo here, we have our mouse sealed and placed inside a Tyvek pouch. Packaging information. It's a corrugated carton with a roll and lock front RELF. It's a 2-pack. As you can see on the left, it's an RELF container placed inside a 2-pack inside a FOL shipper. The shipper is about 19 inches in length, 13 inches in width, and 6 inches in height. Weighs about 10 pounds. It is an end-loading full overlap container and 275 psi single wall corrugated fiberboard. Sample size. He has 15 shippers. With 2-pack per shipper, he has 30 pouches for testing. Testing information. Same thing as I mentioned before. He did conditioning per ASTM D4362 using desert, frozen, and tropical with 24 hours each for the dwell, followed by ASTM D4169 distribution cycle 3 at assurance level 1. Now he added gross leak detection, also known as bubble testing, to ensure that his product remains sterile. Failure mode. He did everything fine with package performance, conditioning, and package performance. Now he has failure when he did the gross leak detection and bubble testing. Gross leaks were found on the poly side of the pouch. It had compound fold because of the product's height and depth. You can see in this photo right here, it is a steady stream of bubble coming from that gross leak area, and that's considered as a failure. Recommendation. We suggested to change the pouch material for the poly side to include biaxial nylon layer. This will provide puncture resistant and also reduce the pouch size. So what did the client do? He believed, and his boss said they had leaks on the poly side, so he decided to eliminate the poly material and came back with a Tyvek on both sides, 1073B. We repeated testing. Conditioning conditioning the transit and followed by bubble. He had leaks on the Tyvek side, 3 out of 30 pouches. As you can see right here in this photo, that there was some scuffing abrasion coming from the product and rubbing against the Tyvek pouch. So by this time, we said, okay, are you really keeping your Tyvek pouch? And him and his manager, his boss, agreed that they want to keep the Tyvek pouch. So our next recommendation is use the thermoform tray to hold the product in place. So here's our mouse again with the thermoform tray to prevent the product from rubbing against the Tyvek. So we repeat testing. We did the conditioning, the transit, and bubble testing. So this time there's no gross leak. The thermoform tray held the product in place to prevent movement and reduce the abrasion interaction. Let's summarize what we did for these two case studies. For the pouch, you have the option of changing material at the thermoform tray. Pay attention to the interaction of the pouch and the product. For the shipper, look at the flute's direction to the base orientation of testing. Think about different box style and box material. That's the same thing as well as the carton. Looking at the box, the carton style, and the carton material as well. The goals. I hope with this webinar, you're able to learn from other customers and avoid these packages failures. If you have any questions, please feel free to send them in now.
Katie, we do have a few questions already queued up. First one is, if we have a shipper box with a carton holding 30 primary packages, how many shipper box units would be needed for an adequate sample size?
The adequate sample size is determined by our customers. So this particular customer wanted a sample size of 30. We don't select that. A while back ago, we did a webinar on sample size. So if you want to refer to that on our website, you can listen to that webinar. In addition, there are 3 calculators regarding sample size on our website as well.
Great, thanks, Katie. Next question, if you also had a sealed plastic bag with your product inside, not for sterilization, but for avoiding contamination, are you required to do a bubble emission testing, or can you visually inspect only?
If that sealed plastic bag is not your sterile barrier package, then you don't need to do that for bubble testing. A visual will be adequate. However, my concern when you say a sealed plastic bag, I will be worried about the low pressure altitude portion of it. I'm assuming when you say seal, it's just taped down with a piece of tape then, but it's just visual inspection will be adequate because it's not your sterile barrier protection.
We got a comment back on that one. It was heat sealed. So that product was heat sealed. In relation to case study 1, isn't compression testing set up as a pass-fail test following ASTM D4169? If it doesn't pass load, then what?
The compression testing, it is a number where you're trying to get to the minimum top load and able to get that box there. We don't like to use the word pass-fail as a testing laboratory because it's always up for debate. If everything passed, good, but when there's a failure come in, we don't want to go through that portion. It is also a calculated risk that you, the customer, have to decide. So for example, if you have a box that has a large surface area and that requires a huge amount of top load, for example, over 1,000 pounds, and you are able to sustain 900 pound, it is a risk for you to decide whether or not that you guys are fine with it. Just do know that it is just compression. It doesn't mean that you fail sterile barrier testing if that's your key focus. So it is how much risk you're willing to take the not able to reach the calculated top load, but a lot of our medical device customers love to have that compression to be a pass so they won't run into any issues. Thanks, Greg.
Sure. Our next question, does WESTPAK also handle large system levels like MRI machines, MRI machine ship testing also?
Yes, we do. That sounds like it's a cap equipment package performance testing, so it will go through ASTM D4169 if you do decide to do that, or it's the ISTA test standard. So we do large scale all the way down to small boxes of testing as well as product testing as well.
Great, thanks, Katie. That kind of wraps up all our questions for today. Katie, thank you for that fine presentation. If you missed anything or would like to listen to the webinar again, please go to WESTPAK's website at www.westpak.com under the Resources and Webinar tab. The webinar materials should be uploaded in the next few days. We highly value your opinion regarding today's webinar. Please expect to receive a 17-second survey within the hour. We hope you'll take a few moments to complete a short form because we're always looking to improve our materials and processes. Feel free to ask any questions or suggest any new webinar topics as part of the survey. Keep an eye out in your inbox for our next webinar topic. Thank you for attending today's webinar. I'm Greg Swinghammer. Make it a great day.
Okay.